And welcome everybody to On the Table. My name is Chris Barrows and welcome to the Tabletop Express. We're glad you can join us tonight. I'm really excited for those who don't know, because there's been 50, 60, 70 videos, whatever it's been this year on this channel. It all actually began with the two people who are here tonight. And we were going to Facebook mostly at that point. I have to say, we were doing roll and writes and having a good time. But Ryan and Teresa are here, and I'm so excited that you have joined me for this episode of On the Table. Welcome back to the Express to both of you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's awesome to be back.
Yeah, and for those who are tuning in and saying, well, what is On the Table? Well, On the Table, straightforward, is I will be bringing in guests every month just to talk about some games we've played lately and really just have a conversation about those games and the experience. And I think that's the key thing here, everybody, is it's the experience, because games are an experience. And this isn't just about how do I play? What is the fun? What is the emotion that comes out of a game? And really, that's the joy in gaming as far as I'm concerned. Both of you, actually, I got a note. I just remember we had a great time when we first started doing stuff, because we were doing roll and writes with a live. We had a few people join us live. It was talk about experience. That was a fun time. And that was towards the beginning. I mean, this just to date how long ago that was really. That was really a very beginning of a time when, we knew we weren't getting out and meeting with people anytime soon. So that puts it in a lot of perspective. I hope you all have been great. I'm excited to hear about the games you want to talk about. I'm also got a note that I really hope everyone listening and watching is interested in the conversation. Feel free to join in. One of the things I want to just make sure everyone is aware of is we certainly want you to participate with us. So join in the fun. If you do join this live or even after the fact, share some of your favorite games. This says September. I messed up the slide, but it's October. Your favorite games in October. That's what happens sometimes. But hey, live, you own it. But yeah, share the favorite games that you may have played. We definitely want to hear them, and I want to see those in the comments. With that said, I hope you both don't mind. I have a game I want to start talking about that I actually played the other night. And this is my first time playing it. This was a game, and I don't know if either of you have heard of this. It was called Radis Cardis. This is a game from 2012. White Goblin Games, I believe, though there was a few people on this one. So people may played off a different publisher, obviously. But this was a really interesting experience. Now, I have to tell you, first and foremost, this was my first time playing a game in my local game store with people. So that was one of the neat parts about it. I have to admit, I played with my friend Anthony, and I also played with my friend Jonathan. Anthony, who you all know as Board Game Dads on the channel, but also Jonathan, who I play games with all the time. And Jonathan took this photo. This is the game itself. This is a really interesting game. The rats are key to it, which is why it's Radis Cardis. Because as you look at this board that's on the screen here, you're all trying to go up and collect, be farthest up the ladder, so to speak, or up these prestige rows in all these different categories. And you get 10 points, 5 points, or 2 points in particular in this 3-player game based on how far you are up. But here's the kicker. You've got a deck of cards that you're using throughout that is coming out, and you're trying to play the cards, and you're playing cards sometimes and making a decision based on the top cards to collect certain things, or other times to get rid of rats. And what blew me away about this was they actually have 5 cards at the start of the game on the side of a board. And you have one option at the start of a turn where you're actually able to look potentially, and this depends on which cards are out. You'll notice to go up a track, those cards at the top all have colors. So that is where you're going to place to get an action. The first choice you make is a phase where you're going to get to take the top action, and then the bottom action is going to be player dependent. So if 2 players go on blue, you're not going to get that option of the third piece because someone already went there.
Right.
Well, but what's cool, I just have to say, is you have the action to look at how many rats are on these cards. There's actually nuns on a bunch of these. They're like these nun symbols, and the nuns, you have to have less rats than there are the little nun symbols. And if you don't, all your points don't matter. It does not matter. You lose. So you do have to make a conscious decision sometimes to make the choice to go play, to make that first call, say, or it might be the first move you make, which is a free action essentially, or the second action where you have to pick which card you're going to go on, which can be tight because if two people want one already in front of you, well, that's tough luck. But yeah, you got to make a decision. Sometimes you got to look at those cards on the side. You never know. You start with 10 rats.
Is it always a 3-player game?
No, not necessarily always a 3-player game. I can only speak to a 3-player game, so I don't know if I believe there's always 2 cards no matter what. So
okay.
That's what I do understand. I could be incorrect on that, but there's always 5 cards on the side. That from my understanding doesn't change. And you always start with the 10 rats. But sometimes you get these really awesome moves, but you have to take on another rat. You have to take on another rat, and you have to take, and then so after a while, you're taking on whether you start with 10 or 15, it wouldn't really matter as long as you get below the number by the time the final turn comes. So you do have to be kind of mindful of what's under there, and you have to make sure you look. You can really power through and get very high up without looking, but then you're putting yourself at risk. So I don't know. It was very different. It was not very high rated on Board Game Geek. And I find a lot of the games like this maybe aren't, because at the end, you know, I'm not going to go on one track, or you run into some inability to go up on another track. So maybe that's why some of these games don't do as well. But it was a fun game. I really enjoyed it. Definitely had you thinking about the next moves you were going to take. And it does go over a course of rounds. So it's going to end in a timely manner. Turns are quick too, which I certainly like in a game.
That's cool. Yeah, I feel like I usually know a lot of games. I play a lot of games, so I feel like I know a bunch. I've never heard of this game before.
I know.
I looked at the date. It was 2012, right?
Yes.
So I feel like that's not that long ago, and it's already like I'm already like, you know, games are rushing past that I'm never going to play, and so this is one that I've never even heard of.
Right. Yeah. That was just a decade ago.
It is almost a decade ago. But if you think about 2012 and the games from 2012, this game doesn't jump to the top of the list. So it kind of falls under probably a lot of people's radar. I don't know. I liked it quite a bit. That's all I can say. It was different, and it was easy. It was clean to put out and play and then put away, which I always think is a win. This was one of 3 games we played this past Sunday, actually. So we played 3 games in the time that someone explained Ankh for about 45 minutes to an hour to a group of people, and then we're probably 1/4 of the way through a game of Ankh. I don't know. I've never played it. I only assume it takes a really long time. So someone can tell me that one. But Teresa, I know you've got one from 2020, actually.
Fairly new. It's one I picked up at Gen Con, and I actually picked it up last. Like I walked by the booth like so many times, and then as we were all setting up, like, or closing down our booth at Gen Con, I was throwing stuff away, and no kidding, there was a case of this game in the dumpster because they probably didn't have enough to like merit shipping home because it was so pricey. And I just kind of went, and so I literally picked Crumbs out of the dumpster.
That's amazing.
And so Crumbs, it's a really neat little game. The cover art, like, I didn't buy it, admittedly, because I thought the cover art was a bit, you know, like, I don't know if this is for me, but like playing it is the best game for having a little. Like, the game itself is, you get to choose one of these park type creatures, right? So they have squirrels, chipmunks, ducks, and you get to choose your different regions, and you're moving them around, and then you take a bunch of crumbs and you drop them from the top of the board, and they scatter. So it's a real fun mechanic when you're doing it like that. And then you count your points by the number of crumbs that are in your region. So it's a very fun little thing. And like, you can, like, you see the dog meeple there. You can do certain things to sabotage the next player, and you're sacrificing some of your points to actually do this. And I played with my daughter, so she is a very tender-hearted, sweet, not manipulative person. So I womped on her because I had no problem sticking the dog on her or getting, like I just knew how to like boom, boom, boom and game it. But it was so neat. Like it was just the mechanic of doing that for the board. Like that was so fun. Have you ever heard of a game that does that?
That's true. I don't think I have.
I don't think I have, and I'm laughing because I just looked this up. But they describe Crumbs as a game reenacting the intense battles that probably occur every day outside your doorstep. A sweet, innocent little granny has decided to spend the day enjoying the warm sun and tossing breadcrumbs to the local fauna. She remains blissfully unaware, however, that the vicious war is occurring over her precious breadcrumbs.
Yeah,
That's
like
amazing.
so in the image, you see the duck and a squirrel in the same area. And so at that point, you have what's called a squabble. And so you actually have to roll dice to see who outranks that person in that turn. And so you're trying to like really get this going. And you can, like, you see the green dice. There's situation cards that pop up that can reset those. So it might be a high scoring territory now, and then that card comes out, and next thing you know, it's worth nothing.
Interesting.
Or if the crumbs go into the water, if you're not a duck, you can't get those things. And so there's like what? So it's really it's fairly ingenious, and the 3D aspect of having the fence that keeps the stuff in makes it good from a containment standpoint. So it was neat. Would recommend.
I didn't have a ton of familiarity too before you mentioned this with Tidbit Games, and I'm fascinated because they have a bunch of. It looks like they've got a game called Heave Ho in development. Which anytime you say pirate game, I have to say, well, I want to see that. There are some very bad pirate games, but you say pirate game, I want to see how good it's gonna come out. But no, it's interesting. I don't know one like that. Plus, I love the backstory. I know some people don't read the backstory on some of these things, and I always make sure because someone put thought into this story. It's like I always say, as an example of Isle of Cats, the story behind Isle of Cats, because some people tell me it's an abstract game. I'm like, they've got a very clear story to it that you can't ignore. And I will always read those stories. I love them.
It's funny you say pirate game with that mechanism. Dead Reckoning is coming out pretty soon, and they have like a ship, like a battleship that you take little cubes and put them in the ship, and it disperses out, and those are your cannon shots to see if you hit your opponent or not. So it's a similar mechanic, but with a pirate game. So I just popped in my head as soon as you said pirates. I was like, wait,
that's gonna be a great 4x4 style. I mean, that battle system was definitely different.
Yeah,
I remember seeing. I think I went all in on that one. I can't keep track. That one caught my attention. But look, I know, Ryan, that you've got a game that's caught a lot of people's attention. It's a very timely choice, I have to admit, too.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that people may know what I'm talking about now. But it's a good one.
Yeah. So just recently, I picked up Dune Imperium, and it has been awesome. Have you guys seen the new movie at all?
I haven't yet.
Not yet, because I was told I need to see it in theaters. Someone told me it's not. Yes, it's on HBO Max, but you need to see it in theaters. I was partially on upset for 2 weeks about the director's comments about Marvel, but I got over it because the movie sounds really good. I'll own that. But that said, I've not seen it. It's got to be seen in theaters, apparently.
Yeah.
And that's why I haven't seen it yet, because I want to. But
right. Yeah. Right. I went and saw it IMAX opening weekend, and it was just like, it was awesome. Denis Villeneuve, the director, is just like, he's just got a thing for great sci-fi. He did the new Blade Runner movie and Arrival. If you've not seen Arrival, do yourself a favor and go see Arrival. It's amazing. But anyways, he adapted Frank Herbert's Dune, and this board game does something very similar. It has actually art, basically the likeness of the actors and stuff from the new movie. But man, it takes the story of Dune and puts it into a board game, and it makes it really actually feel like Dune, and I don't know how they've done it so well. I've played the Game of Thrones board game, and that does a very similar thing of making you feel like you're in a Game of Thrones, and anyone could backstab you at any moment. And every single battle that you're having in Game of Thrones feels tense because it literally could be your last. You could think that you're owning this thing, and then somebody could swoop in from behind you that you thought was your friend and wipe out your whole army. So everything is tense, everything is whatever. But in Dune, it's more of a war of attrition, where there's battles every single turn, and you're losing soldiers and you're gaining soldiers, and it doesn't even matter because it's just there's always war happening. So every round there's a new battle going on. But I think the thing that I love about this one the most is it has this really great hybrid of worker placement game and a deck building game. And it has both of these things just paired so ingeniously together. So with any deck builder game, you can add more cards or take cards and trash cards out of your deck to make it more efficient, right? The thing about this is that there's an interplay between the deck building and the worker placement. When you're wanting to use one of your workers on a turn, and you only have 2 workers to start the game, and you can only get a maximum of 3. In order to use your workers, you have to play one of the cards in your hand, and that card has to have the type of symbol of where you want to go on the board. There's like 4 different types of areas to go on the board, and the cards that you play have to correspond to the places you want to put your workers down in. And so it's this really tight game of like, you're building your deck thinking, okay, I need to go to all the Dune spaces to be able to get, the spice that I need, which is one of the currencies in the game. And it's one of the places where I can get the most soldiers on the field at the same time. But I also want to be like raising my rank and my influence in all these great houses and with the emperor, and those give you some great benefits, but you need the cards in order to actually go to the spaces on the board. It's really tense, but the tenseness isn't in the battles, like I said with Game of Thrones. It is more in the card play of like, what card am I going to buy? What am I going to add to my deck that I can then use later, hopefully at just the right time, to be able to place the workers where I need them to go. It's amazing. It's so good.
You know what this reminded me? One, that from a deck building perspective, I love Clank and a bunch of these other ones.
Yeah.
But this reminded me of an experience I had with Scythe, where as a battle game, you weren't fighting. The tension was in where are these people going? Not because they're going to even fight you, but just to make sure you weren't going to go to the spaces more than anything. Yeah. It's that same kind of feeling in this game when I played it. And I've only had a chance to play it once. Mm-hmm. I own it. I've only got a chance to get a really good game in once. But I love it. And it does remind me, I mentioned Clank. It reminds you of Clank with the fact that you've got the colors and you're like, but in this case, you're using them to go to a place.
Yeah.
Which there was a guy I know next to an older gentleman, probably in his 60s. And it must have been his first time playing the game. And I heard him asking one of the other people next to us as we were playing our games on Sunday, like, wait a minute, I can't go here without a card. And I'm like, oh, they're playing. And I looked over and clearly they're playing Dune. So it is a neat mechanic. I like it quite a bit.
Yeah. And there's actually a really good reason why it feels like kind of similar to Clank. Paul Denon also designed Clank. It's the same designer. So he's just kind of building upon his previous stuff. And to put it with the Dune veneer on top, it just sings. It's awesome. It's so fun. Love it. And it's really short. It's only to 10 points. And so we could get a game of 3 to 4 players in within an hour with players that really know how to play well. You could get it within 45 minutes to an hour.
Once you know how to play, it's the key thing there. It's like, but I say that with any game. I always laugh when a box says 45 minutes. Like,
right.
Like I was teaching one of the versions of Azul the other day, and it did not take 45 minutes because people were learning. But now once you've done that version, you're really, oh yeah, this is quick. So it's that. But I don't know because of one play. So for the fact that it could take under an hour, I think is great because a lot of people say, I want a game that we can play multiple times that plays under an hour. Mm-hmm. It falls. That's a good category. And have you? I'm familiar with the books and the old movie, so I do think thematically this lines up really well. Yeah. They do a good job with this one, and it does not take up that much table space, all things considered. Like it's not a complete table hog.
Yeah,
a lot of games are.
So pretty tight.
Do those trays come with the game? Because I'm noticing the same color.
Nope, they don't. Those are actually mine right up here. I've got a whole bunch of different colored trays just for all the bits on the table.
Dude, and that makes sense. But I was like, it matches. It looks like it was intentional, and so I was just like,
that would be impressive, actually.
I get weird about games, Teresa. So
I mean, you're just consistent, right? Games, life, and
if you're weird, you're one of the more normal.
There we go.
Let's be fair. This game also I know can come with upgraded bits and stuff. Like some people buy the upgraded bits for it and go nuts. So it's a fun game. I will say, and thematically, it's just really well done. I put thematically in the same kind of world as the way they did Battlestar Galactica really well. Not being Direwolf per se, but it's just that general idea.
Yeah.
And you're right. I'd say the Lord of the Rings one did it. Star Wars Rebellion does it really well. There's just some of these games that fit. I actually double checked this while you were saying that. This actually has moved up to 27th overall. And I know Board Game Geek slates towards a certain type of game and a certain type of user, but 27 is pretty high. And thematically, it's number 10. So, yeah. I mean, I'm interested as I pull this up, that list. 10. If you look at that list, by the way, it's Gloomhaven, Pandemic Legacy, Gloomhaven, Jaws of a Lion, Twilight Imperium 4th Edition, Star Wars Rebellion. There it is. Star Wars War of a Ring. Not Star Wars War of a Ring. That's a mashup. War of a Ring, Clank, Nemesis, Too Many Bones, and then Imperium. And then one I know you like, Arkham Horror, is slotted in at the 11th slot. I just happen to know you like that one, so
I do. I love it.
Well,
all of this right here is Arkham.
That's my collection of another one. But yeah, I think that's a good one. I will say mine is not quite as, I don't think, intense as that one, but it can feel like an intense game at times because it's very tight in terms of where you can put the pieces in the game that I want to talk about, and that one is Calico. I know a lot of people are probably talking about Cascadia because that one's out, and you've got Verdant, which is nearly wrapped up with a Kickstarter. So for flat out, I mean, they've done a great game. They've done a great game every time. If you got Beth on art or an illustration, it's going to be beautiful, and you're going to want to look at it. But Calico, I have to say, this one hit the table for me. And the story, well, I have to tell this story. Calico hit the table. Loved it. I was playing solo games with it, playing 2-player, 3-player games. Yet to get a good 4-player game in, but I got 3 players and 2-player multiple times. And then a horrible thing happened. And that is, I was playing with my daughter, and I was walking into the room, and I tripped with coffee in my hand. Coffee everywhere. The funny story about this, I still owe to ship that out actually to someone for some of the extra parts. I went and immediately bought a new one because I found out it was on sale because it had been a present because I liked the game that much. That's never happened. I've never damaged game 1, but 2, I've never done that. But Calico, this game, you look at it, it's pretty. All right. I know that. But this game is, and I was reading an interesting thing about calling it not necessarily strategic. There's a lot of luck involved, and there is luck in terms of the pieces that come out that potentially you can put into your, onto your board. That's the case with a lot of games. I don't think you can avoid that kind of luck component, but you're playing strategically in a few ways. You've got a lot of ways to score points. You've got certain cats out on the board that are going to score in a type of way. And you're going to know what that pattern is. You've got these other pieces on the board where you can see, for example, AAABB, which means around it, I need to connect up 4 of the same type and 2 of the same type, all wrapping around that piece. If I do that with both color and pattern, I'm now getting 14 points. It's definitely a little bit challenging at times. And then you've got these ways to also get these additional bonus points with these nice rainbows. There's 3 ways to score, really, though. It's pretty straightforward. towards the end, it gets a little tight. You might not be able to finish all your things. And yes, a little luck comes into play because you're only having three pieces out at a time that you can select from, and someone's going to take one before you. If you're playing a 3-player game, 2 people are going to have gone before you. So you don't know what's necessarily going to come out and be available. But it's a pretty simple game. Take a piece, play a piece. I mean, when it's take a piece, play a piece, and 3 ways of scoring, and you can just say, here's the ways to score, here's the basic actions. That's a very teachable game in my view, and I like teachable games. It gets tight and strategic in that way, I think. I read it, as I noted earlier, a really interesting thought about this game, that it's not strategic because you do have the pieces coming out. You do, towards the end of the game, not have necessarily luck where you can there's luck on where you can actually, what you're going to get, where you can place it. And you could certainly take pieces counterintuitively to impact other people. But I'll be honest, I'm not going to complain about that. I think it's a really good game. I've heard Cascadia tightens it up even better. That some particular, it's a different game, but I've heard their mechanics get even, maybe someone described to me as cleaner. I don't know if that's the exact word I would use. I haven't played it, but I'm excited to play that and try that one. But I love this game. I think someone told me the cat on it is not a Calico cat, but I don't care. It doesn't bother me. It's a cat, whatever. You could do a video about games with cats in them. So let's just, enjoy the nice cat cover and the beautiful art. But it's a fun experience. I don't know if either of you have played this one. I know it's pretty popular out in the space these days. So
I feel like the cat on there is pretty deceiving because it looks all cute and cuddly.
I know
that game can get pretty cutthroat.
It can.
Really?
You can get pretty cutthroat in that game. Well, it's very teachable, and it's very you could make it an easy game for someone to enter into. But man, it could turn on you like a cat. I guess you could get the cuddly cat, or you can get the claws. So it's pretty good.
You say that, and there was a screenshot I saw on Reddit the other day. Somebody took a picture of a small call out in their veterinary training book, and it basically said, if you're trying to get hold of a cat who is angry, it is basically don't, because a cat has no moral compass. They don't have any self-preservation instincts. They are just going to hurt you.
Right.
Period.
So don't try to calm a cat down.
Like, if a cat is angry, hands up, walk away. But if it is, don't try to put your hand in a cat fight. You'll lose digits. They don't care.
I'm just laughing because you can look up what you do if you're like, there's a bear there and they give you instructions on what to do. And now with a cat, they're just saying, nope, walk away.
Yeah, you are not the apex predator in this situation.
I find that really fascinating. Look, it is cutthroat. I think that's a fair statement at times. But it's a good. I think it's just a very well designed game, and this is the game that gave me a lot of faith to just, like, I don't want to say blindly buy from them, but if someone told me Cascadia was available, I would say, all right, just pick it up for me.
Yeah.
I have not touched it. I've watched video, but having not played it, I don't always just pick it up. In this case, I've got enough faith. I'm like, no, let's get that. Let's do that right now.
That's why I like Keymaster. I know what their games are going to be like. I know how long they're going to play. I know they're going to be a small table space, so I could take it out, go on a board, or go on a date night, put it on the table at a restaurant. Yep. I'm not going to need to grab the booth,
Mm-hmm.
Kids table board gaming does that with me sometimes too, because I would pick up any of their games and I pretty much know they'll play well with the kid. Mm-hmm. They'll play well with me. Fossil, I can never say the name of the darn game. Fossilis, I guess is how it's supposed. I just call it Fossils sometimes, and I know I'm wrong, but it's a great game. But it's that same kind of vibe. But you know what? You both have played some really great things. I'm really interested actually in this next one because I don't think on this channel we've ever talked about a game quite like of this genre of games. So I'm excited to hear about your next one.
Yeah. So I'd been kind of researching and looking into a game called The 1,000-Year-Old Vampire. Solo game, so that meant like I knew I could get a game in. We didn't have to rely on anybody else, and picked it up. And I originally thought like I was going to be able to do this anywhere, right? And so I was like, because I was at Gen Con, I even bought the dice too. I was like, I was going to make sure I could do it right now. And the game is so neat because you take these 2 dice, you roll them, and then that mechanic on subtracting the 2 numbers tells you whether you're going forward in the book or backward. And then you're using those prompts to come up with the idea. So backing up further, I should probably start at the beginning. You start as a vampire, and or a normal human, and then you get turned into a vampire, and you pick the mortals who are in your life, the person who sires you. You kind of learn, it can develop and understand. It's very righty heavy. And then you write down these memories, and you're writing down, you have a list of 5 memories you can hold on to. And as the game goes, you have to delete memories and write a new one. And it's really hard. Like at one point I was like, I don't want to forget the vampire's father. Like they had a thing that was her. How do you forget? And I got real like touched by it. And in the book itself, because it's like, okay, you pick a time period, you pick all of this. And then as you're going through the prompts, if you don't understand what happens in that time period, at that point in time, what the mechanics were, what was happening in the greater world, it's okay to put a pause in your game and then go hit up some internet searches and really dive in. And so I was diving into the Meiji era of a small city on the other side of Tokyo, like on the opposite side of Tokyo on that main island, and really trying to figure out what the dynamics were of that one village, and how would it work? Because I wanted to make sure my vampire was historically accurate. Not that there's vampires that are, anyhow, but it was just fascinating. And I'm going through this book, and I'm gathering things, and I'm deleting memories, and I'm getting real angry. And my vampire isn't necessarily doing nice things. It is doing some really atrocious, awful things. And I'm having to this book's full of trigger warnings. There's lots of content issues. And as you're going through the beginning, it's like, hey, look, if you have concerns with X, Y, or Z, this may not be the game for you.
Yeah.
Like they just own it. Like, hey, vampires, they are not philanthropic creatures, like just, unabashedly going through it. Incredible. I will own this game forever. I'm going to keep playing it because it's also gorgeous. I didn't include any internal photos, but let me see. Let me try to do this. So there's gorgeous illustrations on the back, but then every so often you're going to see, let me see if I can find a good one. It's actually going to be more in the setup where they have what looks like newspaper cutouts. And so it ends up looking like somebody's really bizarre journal, and you're going through it, and you're experiencing it as it's happening. And it's surprisingly visceral. And it's the first time outside of a choose your own adventure book when I was 7 that I've had this experience, and to be in control of the narrative, sometimes heartbreakingly so, absolutely mind-blowing.
It sounds cool to get, again, it sounds like you can get lost in it, which I always think is fun.
Yeah.
I talk because I talk a lot about just being able to get lost in. I was talking we did this with Halloween. I was talking about it with Betrayal at the House on the Hill, and just getting into your character and saying, well, this is who my character is. This is their backstory, creating that and how that changes the game, because it's a game that is fun. It's enjoyable. It can be very clunky at times, but if you get into the character, you don't care. You're having this great time. It creates a great experience, but this has it built in. That's the game, is being lost within.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love stories in any way that I can get them. Movies, comics, even in music. If there's this through line in an album, I just love that sort of thing. And I've looked into this game, and I have not pulled the trigger yet for whatever reason, but I think that you're putting me over the edge, especially with being Halloween right around the corner here in 4 days. Yeah. I think I should have been doing it all October now.
Well, I warn you both. That's one thing I've found, especially on here. Someone tells you about something, and it's like you get drawn in. I'm looking behind me at, is it not here? Did I move it? Oh no. Mandala it's behind my back. You can't see it. But the last time we actually did an episode of this, Anthony talked about Mandala. I walked into my friendly local game store, sitting on the shelf. I was talking to the local owner, and because like, no, honestly, it's my favorite 2-player game. I'm like, well, wait a minute, what? Like, I'm Targi fan here. Targi's my number one. You tell me he's like, no, I like Targi. I like this better. I'm like, okay, now I have to try this.
Yeah.
And I came out of it now needing like 3 or 4 more plays that I have to now put Targi up against it, which is heartbreaking but really cool at the same time. So it's fun to hear. That one sounds really interesting. I don't always solo. When I do solo, it's Hadrian's Wall for the most part at this point. But I need to see this now. This is on this
because it takes such a small space, right? Like if you know you're going to be traveling or whatever, 2 dice, that book, and a notebook, or your whatever.
How much time do you think there has been so far? Like, how much gameplay is there in the whole book?
Oh, tons. It's hard to say because each page has like 3 different prompts. So if you hit that page once, you go to the next one. You go to the next one. But then it's like, let's say you do all 3 and you end up getting back to that same page. So much has happened with your character,
right,
that you don't care. You're like, you know what? Of course, I run out of milk all the time at the house. I know what happens when you run out of milk. It doesn't mean that I've run out of gameplay in my life. It just means I ran out of milk.
Yep. That's fantastic. So is it like, can you start it over and have a totally different experience?
Yeah.
Because of the dice, right? Because of making different decisions.
The dice, or because you set up the characters differently and you don't care as much about them, so you have no problem like getting rid of one or do it. And so you treat the game differently.
Yep. Yeah, I'm fascinated by that one. I'm really intrigued.
Well, it certainly now, hopefully for those who may not have known about it, they will now discover it, because it sounds like a really neat experience. And like you said, to be able to travel with it is always great, because it's a book, really, a book and dice. I mean, that's what it is. It's not one I was super familiar with either, so that was really neat to be able to see it. I'm excited. I got to tell you though, Ryan, because I know one that you've been playing lately, and it is one that I love, but I have not talked about it on here in a while. Actually, we talked about it quite a bit at times in the past, but I don't think I've talked about it here in the past, I don't know, 4 or 5 months. So
yeah,
if you're giving me an excuse, I'm going to take it.
Right.
I'm say.
Well, I'm kind of glad. I was a little hesitant putting it on the list, because I know that you guys used to have a whole Marvel Mondays segment.
For a whole one episode that we decided that specific didn't work, but we did one.
Right, there you go. But yeah, Marvel Champions is still fantastic, right above me here. And man, just all the new content they keep bringing out for this game is fantastic. I love getting able to grab a new character and like even just play the character straight out of the box and don't even deck build, don't even change anything. I played a solo. My son and I were actually playing through Guardians of the Galaxy, Galaxy's Most Wanted story box. And we were going through as Rocket and Groot, and it was so hard. And I just kept on reading everywhere online. You can't use the base game. You can't use the base decks. You have to deck build. You have to use different characters. And I was like just so determined to use Rocket and Groot for the Galaxy's Most Wanted. It was what I wanted to do. And so I deck built a little bit, but then went through the whole thing, and it was so hard. It was so hard to go through. I think I played against Nebula maybe 4 or 5 times, and then against oh my gosh, Ronan, I swear probably at least a dozen times before I beat him.
Well, it's interesting because the box you're speaking to, which is the second expansion, they talked, if you looked at the space, everyone talked about Ronan being so ridiculously hard, and he was. But then at the same time, I heard all the things people talking, oh, but we wanted more of a challenge. Some people wanted more of a challenge. They got the challenge, and then suddenly I hear people, I'm like, just enjoy it for what this, because the game's still out of a box. You talked about it. Take a set out of a box. I've got literally a pack sitting over here of Venom that I have not yet to play with. I know I can play the pack out of the box, and I can do stuff later. And you mentioned Nebula. I just got the Nebula pack.
Mm-hmm.
But now you could play Nebula as obviously the hero. And they've started to add these mechanics as this game has grown. The team ups, the other things they've added. So this is a game, the photo on the right, you may have seen before. My son is the lower, like his arm is in the photo. But that's one of the games we were playing. If you can't tell our favorite characters by our play mats, well, at least two of us you can tell.
Wait, you guys both sleeve?
Yeah.
Excellent. See, I would have thought that was just two different games that Ryan played.
To the extent of sleeving that I took, Ryan Espin, who I was doing some Marvel stuff with on here, and you'll still see him on the channel. These I actually have where it's this on the other side, but if you go to this side,
oh my gosh, that's fantastic.
You can go like that.
What?
Because that's Ant-Man. So Ant-Man and Wasp are both big cards that you could fold. Woo. But these things were great. I love these. Awesome.
So yeah, my son has some of it's a little bit over his head at this point. We have to go back and play Rhino, which is usually the easiest for him to play. But the reason that it's been coming back up and coming to mind again. One of my buddies here in town, he actually has worked with Marvel in the past. He is an illustrator for some of the comics. He has done a bunch of concept art for the movies and stuff. John Tyler Christopher, he lives here in town with us, and he's just like this amazing artist. He does such good work, and he loves Marvel. And he's, like I said, he's worked with Marvel for years now at this point. He does a bunch of great variant covers for some of the comics that they have. And he's got, anyways, I'll stop talking about John, but he's this Marvel nerd. And he was like, hey, I want to start playing some games. And I'm like, dude, I've got just the one for you. And so him and I and one other buddy of ours got together, we ordered some pizza and let them choose their favorite heroes. And I built decks for them before we even got together. And it was so much fun. And it just kind of re-sparked this love of Marvel Champions, getting to play it with somebody that's so enthused by the IP and is not a gamer, hasn't played many games at all, but picked up on it so quick. And we just had a blast. So it was the three of us, and he was playing She-Hulk, and just every bit of interaction that was any bit thematic, he's telling us what issue things are from, and he's like, oh, and she would definitely do this, so I'm gonna do this, even though it wasn't the smartest move. He's just going with everything that's the most thematic thing for his character. So it was so fun to be able to play with somebody that loves Marvel so much, and he doesn't really play games, but just awesome. He loved it. And then the next week I talked to him, and he pulled me aside. He's like, dude, I bought the game. He goes, I'm playing everything. I'm like, yes, finally you're in. So
that's a great feeling too, because you can play it really whether you're in person or not, because it's a very zoomable game.
Mm-hmm.
You can zoom this game very easily. Ryan, who I already mentioned, actually the way I met him was through a Facebook group. Mm-hmm. We connected because we found out we were both local, and our first time doing anything was, pretty sure one of the first things, maybe not the first, but one of the first was Marvel Champions over Zoom.
Cool.
And I just remember taking on, there's one where you take on Kang, and Kang destroyed us because there was way too many Kangs. But it was great. Look, I have to ask you both, because before I let you go, we are on the cusp of Halloween. Mm-hmm. Have you played any good creepy, scary monster Halloween-y games lately? Anything on the radar as well? I know I can just say I really want to play. I don't necessarily want to buy, but I want to play the American monsters version of Horrified.
Yeah.
I know it's the same. I know it's a reskin with new monsters. I don't care. It's fine with me. I'm all right with that. Give me the Jersey Devil and some of these other things, because quite frankly, that's cool to me. I'm excited about it. So I got to play that. That's on my list of I need to play it now. And I know a few people who have it. So I will be holding off on my own purchase, but I will plan to play it.
I played Campy Creatures.
Mm-hmm.
I want to play it again. We have the expansion. We haven't opened it yet. So I just want to like dive in, really get that going. And want to even get my husband involved in that because my daughter womped on me. So I'm hoping that if I put him in the game, she won't focus on beating me. You know, she did to me there what I did to her in Crumbs. So
Right. I'm always partial to Arkham Horror. Over my shoulder here, all my Arkham Horror. It takes up 2 slots on my shelves, so I kind of have to say Arkham Horror. They've got a bunch of new stuff coming out that I'm really excited for. One that's like a time travel kind of scenario, which I'm excited for, to kind of travel through time through Arkham. And then they also have one of my favorite short stories from H.P. Lovecraft coming to the table in The Mountains of Madness. And so I'm so excited to get that to the table too, and get
Which is a game itself. But
yes, yeah. So now it's yeah. But with this new expansion, there's a whole new story, and it's one of my favorite short stories from the author, and it's one of the creepiest ones too. So that's why I'm excited, and it should be here in time for winter too. And it's all wintry landscapes and snow covered everything. So
Mountain of Madness, you make me think of that game, which is really the Mountain of Madness game is really more of a it's like a psychological game to play with your friends. It's more party style, but I've learned to play it much like the way I look at Mysterium,
right,
with people that are at least semi gamers, because if you just bust out that game, they're like, I can't talk to you, or I'm shaking, or whatever the weird things in the game are. Like, I don't want to do that. This is embarrassing. It's like, no, you got to dive in. You're the character. Yeah. Like, you've got to do this. You're on the mountain, the Mountain of Madness. Before I let you all go, the only other thing I say, any honorable mentions, anything you played this month that maybe just didn't get a chance, we didn't talk about with our 2, because I limit you. I'm sorry. But anything that comes to mind, Ryan, in particular, I know you might have had one.
Oh, yeah. Actually, I did, yeah. I finally got to play A Feast for Odin with some buddies of mine. I've only played it solo so far just because of pandemic stuff and whatever. But finally got to play A Feast for Odin with the Norwegians expansion with some buddies. And it is like, it's the most table hog game I have ever played. It's just pieces everywhere. It's so intricate, and it's basically an open world game of Vikings. So think of anything that you could do as a Viking, and you could do it in the game. And it's a worker placement, but it's the biggest worker placement. There's like 64, 65 places on the board that you can go. And you can do anything from like whaling to hunting to
going to like pillaging other lands. I knew that game was big, but 65.
Yeah,
that's insane.
Do you have to have an extra table you bring in for that sucker, or what?
I know, there was 3 of us, and it took up my entire dining room table. I mean, it was just huge. It was huge. But it's so fun because then it's with Uwe Rosenberg. He's got like he's been working on like that Tetris style game, like in Patchwork, right? Mm-hmm. And you get all these pieces, and you start the game with like almost 100 negative points. And you have to start taking these Tetris style pieces and filling them in and covering up your negative points to somehow get positive points. And so it's just got so much going on in it. It's so complex, and I loved it. We played it for hours, and we were just like dead afterwards, but we were like, we got to play this again. So very fun.
I have to give that one a shot sometime. I'm just afraid I'm going to have my Caverna experience. But
I like it more. I like it more than Caverna. So,
well, it does not take me much. The long running joke is it does not take me much to like something better than Caverna. I don't know what I can't explain it. It's like the fact that I saw it when I was a kid, and you can't put me near a clown now. Caverna will forever never. I still have it. It sits in my other room. I've got a bunch of shelves over there. It sits there because it has so many great pieces, and I've used them.
Yep.
Everdell and other things when something went missing or my child did something, and then I put them back in the box once I was good. But anything on any honorable mentions for you, Teresa, or anything that's coming to mind?
There's something I'm waiting very, I'm gonna say patiently, maybe not, but I'm waiting for Unsettled, because I'm one of those local pickup people, in the Vancouver area. I'm just waiting on the game, but everybody else is playing, everybody else is having a good time, they're posting their pictures, and I'm just sitting there going, nah, just like, because I got to help design at least, or I got to help brainstorm ideas for it and possible mechanics. I have no idea what hit the game. I have no idea what's in the box or boxes. And so it's like, good grief. You know what I mean? Like, it's just one of those, like, I'm just.
You're even closer to the puzzle then. It makes me, because I'm waiting on, I just got word Western Legends is coming in. I talked about this last time. Western Legends finally going to be here, my final box. So that's going to bust out. Shem sent out a great email. So I know that we got the final bit of Paladins of Western Kingdoms. And I just saw, I think it's in 3 or 4 days from now, the Southern game is going to be announced. So we're going to know a little bit more about what else is coming. So there's exciting stuff coming. I thank both of you for coming back. Obviously, you're always welcome to come back anytime you like for any of the series we do here. But it was so great to have you back and just have a great conversation about games. As I noted, it's been a while, and this has been just a ton of fun for me. And one of the most fun things I've probably done on this channel in a while to bring you both back. And I have those fond memories of just trying to think about, well, let's do Zoom friendly games, because that's what people can do now. And which means, but the great thing is we are all very far away from each other, and we can do Zoom. So it's right. It's still a thing. It hasn't changed. Right. And now, Ryan, you and I can definitely do some Marvel Champions. We're due for that.
Right. Exactly.
We can start a campaign when Thanos finally gets here.
There we go. Perfect.
Well, thank you both for joining. If there's anyone ever interested, obviously, in coming aboard and being a part of On the Table, I'm going to be having a wide variety of guests coming over the course of the next few months and the next year. I know some of my friends over at the Long Distance Gamers are going to be joining me at some point in the next 2 months. Really great crew. Excited to have them coming back. And and in the next 2 months, you're going to know who and when both those people are coming on. So Long Distance Gamers will be one of the 2 episodes. And then in the new year, maybe get some creators and some new designers, or not new designers, but designers on the show. So be cool to bring some of them in to talk about what they're playing. So if you got suggestions or you're interested in joining, ping me, let me know. Happy to kind of entertain people all over this great globe of board gamers that we have. With that, I say thank you to Ryan, thank you to Teresa, and thank you to all of you for coming aboard the Tabletop Express this evening. This has been On the Table, and I look forward to coming back to you with more and more great talks, conversations, and just overall celebration of board games in the continued weeks and months and years to come. Have a great night, everybody.